Katja. I'm so
Hello.
happy that you could take time to join us here for this little talk. And of course, I am overexcited that you will speak, even have two speeches, two lectures at our conference in September of 2025.
Hello, Petra. I'm also very excited and very happy to have the talks on the conference. Yeah.
So, you are a scientific researcher at Jena University. And what is the current research you are working on about?
So, yes, I'm a researcher on the University of Jena, and we are doing at the moment a very big project. It's about the development from puppy gait to adult gait of the dogs. So it's a long-term study, and we try to measure the pups monthly. And when they grew up and become older, then we increase the time where we see them. So we see them every third or fourth month when they are more than a year old. So we try to find out what changed from puppy gait to adult gait, when it changed, and if there's something to change. But therefore, we need a lot of puppies, and it wasn't possible to do it alone. So we had 4 locations in Germany, which are also cooperating with us, and we get a very big database. So we have more than 4,000 measurements on the puppies. Yes.
That's a lot of data. And also you have at the university, you have some amazing equipment. Are you using it in this study? And can you tell me what makes it so unique?
So in this study, we use an instrumented treadmill. So that's the first time we use instrumented treadmill. Um, An instrumented treadmill means that we have a normal treadmill, but under the treadmill belt there is a matrix of a lot of sensors, and these are very tiny pressure sensors. It's more than 200 sensors are integrated under the treadmill belt. And therefore, if dog is moving on the treadmill, he didn't get to know anything about the measurement. So he's still walking on the treadmill. And we can sample with 200 hearts. And we get informations about the roll-offs of the powers and how they connected to the ground, how they roll off and move on. We get information from the forces, the pressure, and we get some information from like how long is the stride length, or how wide is the stride length, how long is the stance time, how long is the swing time, and so on. And so we get a lot of informations from the instrumented treadmill. But before using this instrumented treadmill, we made a research on how good is it. And therefore, we placed the treadmill on different force plates. And we put a dog on the treadmill and let them trot, and we measure with the force plates what kind of force was produced by the dog, and we also measured with the treadmill, and we compared the force plates, which is the gold standard to measure forces, to the instrumented treadmill, and we found that there are only tiny differences, and it's a quite good instrument to measure the forces. And we also take a look at what's the difference between normal walking and treadmill walking regarding the forces and the stance time. And we also found that there are only tiny differences, and the differences are majorly caused because if I let the dog walk normal over the force plates, so the dog is more looking to the left, to the right. He's decelerating and accelerating, and he's not at that constant speed. And we need a lot of trials to capture some good forces where the dog is only touching the force plate with one paw and not with two, and so on. And the instrumented treadmill benefits from we need 30 seconds to capture more than 20 gait cycles it's not possible with force plates, and the results are quite good. So we had a good comparability between normal walking and treadmill walking. We know that there are some difference in the joint angles, but that's not what we did compare. So we want to know what's about forces and the pressure and so on. Yeah, so the treadmill is the major central part in our puppy study, but we have in Jena also different equipment. And one of the special equipments is the X-ray. So it's a biplanar X-ray where we can have movies from a huge variety of animals. It should not only be dogs; it can be all around the world. And we have two cameras sampling with 2,000 frames per second. And you can see using the X-ray how the bones are moving when the animal is walking. And for everybody who's interested in, you can use a internet browser search engine and type in X-ray movies Jena, and you will find the X-ray collection. And you can have a look at different animals that were measured from, I believe the first videos were recorded at 1993 up till to date, where some videos were made on a quite a variety of animals. So there are some snakes or some squirrels, or a sloth is also moving on a branch, and rats and so on. And of course also the dogs. So you can search there and take a look, and you can see what we've done if you use the online browser. And also we use some kind of other stuff like marker-based motion tracking. That's when you glue little tiny markers on the skin of the dog, and you have some high infrared cameras with a high resolution. And they send light flashing through the markers, and the markers reflecting the light back to the camera, and then you can see where the markers are moving in the room. But then you measure what the skin is doing, because you glue the markers on the skin, and we are normally interested on what the bones are doing and not what skin or muscle mass is doing. So marker-based motion tracking, it's okay, but it has some problems even in dogs when we have a lot of skin mass and so on, and the skin mass is moving, and it's moving the markers, and that's not what we want to do. But we have also collaborations. For example, we have not that much cameras for motion tracking, and we have not so many force plates. And in my research for my PhD, I did investigate what's about the forces when a dog is jumping and landing. And therefore, I need a big lab with force plates and so on. And I moved to the University of Münster, and they have one of the biggest labs with, I believe, 18 cameras or something like this. So we measure the big in a big room, and the dog can move freely and jumping and landing and so on. And we measure this in synchrony with the force plates, and we get information about how what kind of forces are reacting to the dogs when they take off before the jump, and when they land. And that's one of the talks that I will have on the
Yeah,
conference.
I just wanted to say that this all sounds so interesting, and that I can't wait that you start your presentation at the conference, and you will present what you're doing now and what your PhD was at the conference. But in your opinion, if you look at all that was done on movement in Jena University or University of Jena, what would be, in your opinion, the most surprising or maybe important findings of the study?
So Professor Fischer was investigating in locomotion of dogs some years, and he did one of the greatest and biggest research on dog movement. And I believe one of the most important findings is the connection between form and function. And for example, it becomes for me evident that unfortunately many anatomical dog skelettes you will find at different universities or in the internet that are assembled incorrectly, because you will often see that the hip joint is located at the level of the shoulder joint, but that's not true. So the hip joint should be located at the level of the upper third of the scapula. And if you know this and you go with open eyes through the world, then you can see a lot of wrong assembled skeletons. This makes a problem because people believe that's the way how a dog is standing or moving, but this makes no sense because the scapula functions almost like an additional limb segment. So scapula contributes a lot to the stride length, and this was long time underestimated, I believe. And how the scapula move is rotationally, and there's a translation around the rib cage, and these are some things that were not known before, but were found out using the biplanar X-ray, where we can see how the bones are moving, and we would not see this in using marker-based motion tracking when we glue something on the skin, because there's so much skin mass wobbling and so on, where we could not find this. And I believe this is one of the greatest things that were found out in the past dog studies under Professor Fischer. And we also see that there exists a parallelism in the limb segments. So you will always see that the first and third segments, where for the forelimb it's the scapula and the antebrachium, they maintain a consistently parallel orientation throughout the stance phase. So they are moving always in parallel, and Professor Fischer called it the pantograph, but today nobody knows what a pantograph is. So maybe we have to find a new word of this. But this parallel orientation of the first and third segment of the limb is also seen on the hind limb. So how the scapula moves is equal to how the femur is moving, and the femur and the metatarsus are always in parallel position during the stance phase, and that's one principle. One principle of locomotion that we see in all dogs, right? The huge variability and differences in breeds. If we take a look at French bulldogs, for example, and a greyhound, they are quite different, but they are using both the same parallelism and orientation in the first and third segments of the limb segments. Yeah. And I believe that's one of these are the biggest interesting results from the past studies. But there are much more, and it's quite better to tell or to talk about that if we can show it on pictures and videos and so on. So maybe it's a bit hard to follow. When I'm only talking about that. Yeah.
And what was also interesting for me was that from the side, if you're looking at dogs moving from the side of different breeds, it's basically all the same.
Yeah.
But that the huge difference is when you look at them from front to back or back to front, especially from like side hounds and shepherds, and then to the breeds that are bred to have short nose.
Yeah.
So like bulldogs and pugs and those kind of, because that was for me, that was kind of, yes, new information, but also kind of scary and sad how they are moving.
Because it's always the problem, and if we change one thing, for example, if we want to have a shorter nose, we are not only producing dogs with shorter nose, it have influence on the whole body of the dog. And yeah, and if we go out from the lateral view, how all dogs move in the same way, and we switch to another view, then we can see that in making a short nose, we change how how the limb moves, how the cage is changed in length, and therefore we can see how, especially the knees are moved on the out of the line. I want to say out of the line, maybe. Yeah.
Mhm. Um, there's a lot of talk in the dog training world about how much and how dogs should move or need to move. So, in, let's say, in your educated opinion or guess, what would you say if we are looking at a healthy, like average size dog, let's say shepherd, so without any anomalies, how much would you say they need to move to stay healthy and vibrant?
Yeah. So it's at first it depends. It depends on a lot of factors, but it's important that the dogs can move, and they had to move freely, not only restricted on a leash or something like this. They have to move, to run. They have to stop and run and change direction and so on. And they need different kind of movement. So it's not a good idea to only go on a walk, or the dog is always on a bicycle and you are always um, driving a straight way, a straight path or something on. So the dog has to move freely. He needs different undergrounds and so on. And only if he moves, he can grow up with muscles. So uh, a dog lying on the couch would not produce any kind of muscle. That's something we get often asked, how much movement needs a puppy. Yeah, there's some rules. If let me say the dog is 2 months old, then you cannot walk the dog longer than 10 minutes or something like this. So that's stupid. Such rules are quite stupid. So because it depends on the puppy, and it's even the same with an adult dog. And even if he's healthy, you always have to take a look is if the dog is tired or not. So if the dog is tired, then make a break and then move on. And on the next day, you will know, okay, maybe that was a bit too much. So, and I believe that's in pretty simple and easy way that we can go, and not thinking on numbers. So I can tell you 1 hour. But it depends. But maybe for a dog that was only moved 10 minutes before, and now I say for an hour, and he goes out for an hour, it's pretty hard for the dog. So because yeah, the dog has to grow up with the activity level. So go out, take a look. If it's too much, make a break. Then start on the next day again, maybe a shorter round, and so on. So yeah, let the dog move freely, and if you see he's tired, he can rest. Yeah, that's what I would like to say.
That's a very good point that you just made, that instead of trying to teach people how much dogs should move at what age or at what condition or whatever, we should more be focused on teaching people to recognize the signs of when the dog is tired.
Yeah.
So, how does the puppy show that this was too much for him? How does the older dog show that he's tired and he needs to just maybe even just rest for 5 minutes before he continues. So just putting more emphasis on teaching people to read the dogs than teaching them how long the walk should be. But also the other thing I liked that you said is that um, not just the amount of exercise, but also what kind of exercise. So running next to the bike for, I don't know, 10, 15 kilometers can be as damaging as not walking the dog.
Yeah, so it's a problem in not walking the dog because the dog needs muscle mass, and if you not walk the dog, he did not have an adequate muscle mass, and even if the dog has some joint problems, you had to keep him um, active in what I mean is walk the dog. So we have a lot of dogs with hip dysplasia. Yeah, hip dysplasia is always a big problem. But even if the dog gets some diagnosis, I believe it's not a good idea to take them out from any kind of sport and let them only lie on the couch. So that does not help the dog. If the dog is active, and then he has the chance that the muscles can compensate for some non-healthy problems, so like hip dysplasia and so on. I do not mean make some high level sports or something like this. Yeah. But be active, find a adequate level where you can move the dog, and what you can do with the dog. And there we are again on the point that how's the feeling of your dog, or how is the dog comfortable with the movement or not. And I believe some years ago we had a better feeling from our inside how the dog is. Today it's only like we need numbers. We need numbers, and I take a look at the watch, but we don't look at the dogs. So I believe that's a quite a problem. Yeah, and yes, I believe not moving can cause problems. Yeah, and it's the same on the other side with extremely long movements or extremely strenuous movements. For example, like bicycle, the dog next to the bicycle for maybe 15, 20 kilometers. If the dog gets trained to this level, this could be okay, but do also some other things. Yeah. The problem is always if we do not, do not have a full view on the dog. So we always have to find different movements, not only go bicycle, not only go on hard surfaces. Yeah, not only do always one thing. So there should be a variety of undergrounds, movements, different things, and so on. Yeah, and not only throw a ball. That's quite stupid. You can also move too. Yeah. So that's something. Is throwing a ball is yeah. I don't like it.
I'm pretty sure that at the conference there will be a whole debate about this. And you said it so nicely. It's years ago, so previous generations had much more feeling for the dog. And now everything has to be written down, has to be numbers, has to be in, I don't know, graphs and all of that. Otherwise, it's not important. And we should start turning a little bit more towards having a little bit more feeling again.
Yeah, yeah. I believe that's one of the biggest points. So I get my first puppy 15 years ago, and today I get questions on how many minutes could I walk the puppy, and it was like, what? I never thought about that on my own puppy because it was like, oh, okay, that was a bit too much, and now next day we take more time or make the walk a bit shorter or something like this. And today is only, no, this was 1 minute too much or something like this.
So thank you very much for joining me for this talk, and I'm again excited to see you at the conference.
Yeah, I'm excited too.